This is a Thornycroft, folks, and Thornycroft started business about 1910, 1911 in England, and Ray, they were quite up there, with manufacturing it all the way through to about to early 1960s, I'd say.
Oh, very true. John Thornycroft, who started the business, had a lot of pride in what he manufactured. Everything he tried to make himself, and it's all branded Thornycroft and beautifully crafted.
And this would be 50 something, I would say, but like it's molded. It's got a shape to it. It's not just sort of banged together like a square box.
The pressing in the door, the stylized.
Yes. The drop windows.
It's got quite an expression to it.
Yeah. And I love this little screw-on radiator at the top here, the Thornycroft logo, and this is called a sturdy star. So if you're driving a sturdy star, you were driving a Thornycroft, and you showed off your flash truck.
It's a petrol engine, flathead 6-cylinder with a 4-speed transmission, and has a Cameron roller dump box on it.
Wow.
Which is pretty old deal, but very successful. So you can imagine this carrying 8 to 10 tonne in its day and being considered quite the machine.
Absolutely. Let's have a look in this cab. I just noticed there's a binnacle there in front of the steering wheel, so it's got that box feel about it, but let's have a look in the cab. And look at that, folks. It's got a T for the door, or T for Thornycroft. But it's down here. It's got a step to hop into this thing. The seats don't do much, but you can also see the engine, the gearbox, the seat, and that binnacle. Come over and have a look. And there she is, folks. Ray, just tell us what you can see.
Wow, cab's lost a fair bit of its structure here. It's all metal. We have a little binnacle here and a solid steel steering wheel, and all steel. This thing's going to last.
And I love the way that the gear stick's bent, so it's in the right place for the driver. I guess it's behind you just a fraction if you're a little bit. And there's another gear stick towards us, but that's to operate the cam roller hoist. In the roof there's a little air conditioning vent, I suppose you'd call that.
Catch as many bugs as you can and jam them into the cab, and drop a bee down your back of your shirt.
I think that might have been a bit of an afterthought. But just close your door a bit, but you can see how the style of the windows sort of got a bit of an arch to it. And so they've thought about, when they've designed this truck, they've thought about, well, how can we make it different? How can we make it stylish? And they've gone ahead and done it.
These things were built to last. There's a lot of integrity in the style of the build. All the controls are all made out of metal. There's no plastic, and everything is just exactly the sturdy part of that star. This truck would be a bit of a devil to drive, but it would certainly wear the man out first.
But at this time, you got a job. There's your truck. You didn't argue. You just got in it and off you went.
It was a whole lot better than what you had before. This truck was starting to go to work, I'm sure.
So I just noticed the handbrake in the corner when you haul that, full on, just like British trucks. It's sort of halfway in the door when you got to get in and out of the thing.
That'll catch on your little shorts that you were wearing at the time, and
yeah, that's right.
Go right up your leg.
Yeah, so in New Zealand the uniform was a black singer, baggy shorts and a pair of boots. And that was it. Everybody's that's going to work, particularly in something like this with the engine sitting right beside you. Amazing.
At least the exhaust manifold's on the passenger side, and it would take a couple of hours until you were sweating profusely.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the back. Just looking around the back here, folks, there's a couple of pins here to unlock this tailgate.
Yeah, I'll show you a little trick. The handle's right at the front here. You'd open the door and release your tailgate by pulling the lever. Nowadays we've got an air trigger or a few chains and the action of the body would release it, but you don't see that very often, a manually operated tailgate.
No.
And beautifully built body. Look, it's all rolled and pressed. All these little protectors for the lights. This was a craftsman built thing in the time. Notice the little Clayton DeWare vacuum brake system, which would have led to a lot of frantic moments trying to pull the truck up.
But like you were saying, Mr. Thornycroft, he wanted to be the perfectionist.
Certainly you'll see everything that Thornycroft made has been branded and beautifully.
Excellent.
Has John Thornycroft's name on it. You see by the age, a dump truck running on 825 tube type tyres.
Pannier tread still there?
It's even holding air. Some integrity in a tube.
Yep.
The body's still holding water too. I see it hasn't leaked out, so this was built quite well. It's got a lot of integrity.
Excellent. So this is the old Thornycroft, and there's another one in the shed over there which we'll have a look at in a minute. But next door to this we go from England over to Scotland. This is something from the 1950s, an Albion. It's got a beautiful Albion logo embossed into this piece of metal that surrounds the radiator, and it's got those little chambers you were talking about before with the spring-wrapped radiator. Very popular in its time.
Well, very efficient, and they don't block up with dust and debris. They're easy to keep clean.
And this would have been a heavy-duty truck in its time. It would have probably been, you know, like maybe carting logs, maybe carting heavy loads of metal, coal, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, you notice it has full air brakes and 1000 tyres, so it's definitely quite a senior vehicle to our sturdy Star.
Yeah. The sturdy Star, isn't that amazing? So Albion had names for their trucks as well, but I can't see what this one is. Well, I'm just looking at that sun visor. It's been put on at the time. It's obviously hit something, but
needs a little bit of attention. I imagine a tree has modified it at some time.
Yep. What does this say? Made in Glasgow. That's what it says. I'm just watching for snakes here, because we are in Australia.
Just as well it's not verbal, because you couldn't understand them. The Glasgow accent is...
But this is a typical English cab. Come and have a look in this cab, folks. Typical, you've got a handbrake that comes to here, so then you've got to get around the handbrake to get out and get in. It's got a binnacle, it's got a couple of gauges and a gear stick with a little lever on it, which is probably to put it into reverse. And like that AEC we looked at last show.
All the controls and things are behind you.
Yeah. Even a big air cleaner on the top of that engine. Amazing. Have a look at that engine, folks. It's just...
Big diesel engine, and the throttle's about the right size for the meagre amount of power it would apply, I'd imagine.
Yep.
Solid steel steering wheel, and got electric wiper on the right hand side.
And there's a small little lever here that you could wind the seat up if you were and that's when I drove trucks. The first thing I did is put that seat up as high as I possibly could when I got into a truck or a bus for that matter.
Yeah.
But these days the guys are so. Have you noticed how low they are?
Well, this one's got the drop visor. Perhaps that's wound down for the same reason.
Could be.
To see under the sun visor. Just the air cleaner comes out into the cabin. It'll be atrociously noisy with that engine gobbling air right beside you.
And behind this thing, I see it's got a hoist up behind the cab there.
Front of body.
Front of body hoist, like you say, would have carted silage. But anyway, so it's a piece of history. And would have been somebody's pride and joy back in the day.
I would suggest it was Mr. Brown's pride and joy.
And that's what it says on the top. I just love this little cap, little radiator spring locking device. Doesn't work anymore, but
little kettle.
Yeah, and the
spring.
Little spring radiator. just like you saw in that AEC the other day, a little spring. That's amazing. Amazing system that somebody's thought of, you know.
It's really just giving a lot of area to radiate the heat.
Yep.
And of course, really good airflow.
Yep.
I can see 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So it's probably a tropical, pretty severe radiator.
Well, and so if one broke, you just block it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just crimp it off and go again.
Yep. Well, there you go, folks. The old Albion. Well, here I am in the cafe, and it's just like going back to 1950. The chairs of the time, Formica I think it's all called, and the black and white floors. There's Elvis Presley over there, there's a jukebox over there, there's memorabilia behind me, that beautiful montage of cars behind me. There's even an old Dodgem. Remember the Dodgems that they used to show? Boom, boom, boom. Wonderful. And I'm having a big breakfast. It's bacon and eggs. And so if you come here with your group to have a look at the museum, you can sit down and have a wonderful meal before you even start. So look at that. Bacon and eggs, sausages, tomatoes, toast, mushrooms, the whole 9 yards. And a cup of tea to wash it all down. So there you go. When you come here, come and have a meal first and then enjoy yourself in the museum. Christmas isn't all that far away, and so if you're looking for a present for the truck driver or somebody interested in transport in your life, then my Talking Trucks book might be just the thing. So if you'd like a copy, just email me, billhohepper@extra.co.nz, and I'll take your details and I'll get a copy in the post to you. Now this book covers trucks basically heading back from about 1972 to the time they started making vehicles. So a good historical book, and tells you all about the New Zealand transport industry up until about 1972. So for a Christmas present, perfect. Email me, billhohepper@extra.co.nz. Well folks, we've come across the other side of this truck paddock, I suppose you could call it. And what we've got here is a Thames Trader. It's an Arctic, but you might remember Jackie Mitchell from Cronodon, one of our talking truck shows. He had a fleet of these old girls, and the first thing he did with it was change the radiator, because he had to go up steep hills, down steep hills, hauling coal. So he'd go up Garveys, he called it, load up with coal, come down the hill and dump it into railway wagons. But once he sort of bodged the radiator so it sort of could take more heat, he had a working truck and he just loved it. Then the D-Series Ford turned up, and it didn't do the job as well. In fact, he sent them back and said, "Can I have another one of these, please?" So it was just, you know, interesting. So these Thames Traders were all over the country. They did all sorts of jobs, and here's one here, and as I said, it's an Arctic. Do you know anything about this, Ray?
Yeah, this is the genuine Ford diesel, as it would proclaim here. The 75, it's got the diesel engine and a 5-speed. It's running on vacuum brakes, and it has a vacuum brake strap trailer with a U-clamp turntable on it. It's actually, if we look at it, it's not a quick release. It's a ball bearing.
Oh, really? So you didn't pull the pin?
No, you can't. You've got to dismantle the truck to take the trailer off.
Good God.
They're integrated, yeah. It's got a ball race turntable, big, well, a primitive one. It's a big greasy plate and a great big bolt through the middle, and no chassis on the trailer. It's strap construction, but they were certainly durable and they were light.
I was looking at the mirror frames. Well, I think they called those West Coast mirrors or something, did they?
Flat mirrors, yeah.
Yeah. And this would be the first, that's what they looked like when those type of mirrors turned up. Previous to that, of course, they were just a little
perfume mirror,
yeah, little
on a pole,
rattled away, and you couldn't see a bloody thing.
Would tremble frantically.
Tremble mirrors.
Yeah.
And then, anyway, getting in and out of this thing, it's got this very small door.
But the step ring survives.
And there's a step ring here to sort of fling yourself into it. And I guess if you just sort of went step, now you stepped in, there's not a great deal of room between the end of that steering wheel and the seat doesn't go back anymore, so I'm just looking at the room between here, and I'd have to say, sorry mate, I have to drive something a bit bigger or something like that. But it's still got the diesel in it. It's got a neat switch, handbrakes in a good place.
2-speed rear end.
Yep. A little binnacle instrument panel across the middle of the dash there. Wrap wound windscreen.
Wrap round and beautifully styled, all pressed metal, and it's obviously a reasonably strong cab.
So I have to actually fold up like a pocket knife to actually get into that small hole. Do you think they couldn't have really done much more, could they? They couldn't have, no.
Mate, it'd have to be a Kenworth. One of their mate from Geraldine's favourite trucks. Yeah, it would be the only one complained to be worse than a Kenworth to enter.
Yeah, so in New Zealand, Ray, when I drove a truck about the same vintage, it was an FF Austin, but the front of these Arctics were round, and that sort of missed the back of the cab, I suppose. But were they like that in Australia?
Yeah, initially, but when pellets come along in the 1940s, it necessitated square fronts.
Oh, okay.
To fit all your pellets on, so
right.
That changed the design.
So what I was driving was general goods, so you just chuck stuff on. But it's got this little hoop in the
in the bed there,
yeah. So when it sort of goes flat, you load it, off you go. Amazing. So there you go, folks. The old Thames Trader. This is an old jinker that would have towed logs. It's got a wooden pole, and back in the day wooden poles were the way to go, and just down the front there's a tongue that locked into the back of whatever you were towing it with. But Ray, this has got a sort of a, what would you say, the wheels are off.
It looks frightfully British to me. I'm thinking Thornycroft Scammell area.
Oh, okay.
It would have been supplied to the War Department.
And it's got air brakes. It's got.
Oh, that's what me think. That's where I'm leaning towards this Thornycroft.
Oh, okay.
They used a lot of air brakes.
Well, yeah.
In this heavier tandem.
Well.
The wooden poles, I think, are best explained. You know, finding steel in the post-war era was a problem. There wasn't good steel supply, so a good hardwood towing pole with a steel tongue on there would
somebody
serve your needs.
Thought, no, we can't get steel. What do we use? I know we've got plenty of bloody wood. Let's make some wooden ones.
Well, it wasn't far from having wooden trucks anyway.
No.
In this period, there was a lot more wood involved in automotive in that period.
See how heavy this tongue is. And there's the tongue, folks. A little groove, a little hole in the front piece there to hook into the trailer, and they used an old axle or something. They just shove it through, put an axle or something through the hold it all on, and away you go, rattling down the road.
If you had a Mark 1 Zephyr, you're certain to have a broken rear axle that you could use.
Yeah. And that actually weighs a ton. That's very, very heavy.
Well, it gives you an idea when you join on the scale of this whole thing, and it would have had one of those 1.5 tonne military supplied vehicles towing it, and they'd probably end up with another 20 tonne on it.
Yeah. So, and the rule of thumb back in those days, folks, was if it can move, it's not overloaded. Well, I've come into the museum now, and just looking around, there's all sorts of cars from the 50s and 60s, 30s. There's a couple of 20s in here even, and it's a magnificent collection. So there's lots and lots of stuff in this museum for you to look at, lots and lots of stuff that's going to take you right back to the day. And if you're new, well, there's lots of stuff here about New Zealand history. So if you come here, you're coming to Railside Place, which is off Rifle Range Road in Hamilton. Certainly worth a look if you belong to a car club or some sort of a club and you want a place to go. This is the place to come, and you can start off with a meal in the cafe. Come and have a look, enjoy yourselves. I absolutely recommend it. So here we come to a Foden, and a lot of Fodens of this era and earlier were fiberglass, as this one is. It's got the little logo, or the outside of the logo. There would have been another logo on the inside of that, and it's an unusual one, and it's got a sort of little piano front on it, I suppose. Lift the lid, play the music, and 2 screens slightly bent to it. But Mr. Foden had a brother who was ERF, and I think it was Ernest or...
Ernest.
Yeah, and he decided he didn't like working for Foden, so he went off and started his own company in opposition, and that's where ERF came from. But Foden has been around longer than ERF, and this is an example of one of their designs that have come through the ages. It's found itself into this paddock, and here it is. Let's have a look in the cab. Ray, another one of these cabs where you've got the engine thumping away alongside you. You've got a little binnacle in here with all the instruments on it. Steel steering wheel. That seat doesn't look like the original seat, but it goes up and down, and maybe it rides a wee bit.
That's a national style seat.
Is it?
Yeah, a lot of the English trucks in Australia had national cushion ride seats. It adjusts quite simply with a screw on the top of the cylinder, and provided a little bit of ride when there was none in the truck.
So a bit of this goes on.
Yes. Yeah, a little cylinder here, and you set your height there.
Yep, fair enough. This has just got no twin sticks, no buttons or levers, so it's just a straight 6-speed, you think?
Well, it looks a bit like a pneumocyclic, but it doesn't have the shift quadrant, so it's a bit of a mystery. But certainly the 8LX Gardner, quite a good engine for its period. The exhaust manifolds will keep the driver accompanied and fairly well warmed,
yeah,
which would probably explain why the doors are missing.
Sure. Those Gardners, I think AEC, Foden and ERF had an association, I think, with Gardner, and a lot of the Gardner engines went into them.
To me, to be a Northern Territory truck.
Right, right.
Because it's got double air cleaners, and the long wheelbase would probably mean that it was doing livestock at one time.
Yeah.
The sleeper box, and they've obviously supported the roof there with some jail bars.
Yes.
The roof was probably caving in, the vibration and stuff on the old early corrugated roads. I see the front windows are falling out, and I'd say she's been shaken fairly heavily on those northern roads.
Gavin Abbott restored one of the earlier ones than this, but I just noticed that his one had an automatic greasing, so you filled this device up with grease, and then it pumped out to all the various grease nipples around the truck, and it did that automatically, which was quite a good invention by Mr. Foden. So, just looking into the back here, I've seen these discs before on old Leylands of about the same era. Massive, and the size of the springs,
huge,
huge,
absolutely massive.
And you think this was a road train? I'm just looking on the back there. That back member is supported with...
Yes, it's reinforced, and it's got a pattern there that makes me think it's had a ring feeder on it.
Yep.
Or some sort of pull. So this thing would have been road training up, I would say either gravel or, some bulk commodity, maybe livestock.
Sure.
Lack of corrosion. See, there's a little bit of growth in the frame here.
Yep.
She's sweating apart. She could have done livestock.
Wow.
Massive. I see here there's a capability of running a third axle out of this housing at the back. You put another drive shaft and put a third drive axle on it. Just continue adding axles and take the power out of the back. Well, the frame's been clipped, rather agriculturally cut off, so I dare say it had a fair bit of overhang, and the hitch came in here.
Right. Well,
she's worked for a living, this truck.
I see the back of the engine here. It's a straight 6.
Oh, it's an 8-cylinder.
Is it really straight 8?
It's an 8XL.
Wow. And coming out the back there, looks like they've sort of bodged that gearbox, and maybe have a look at, just explain what you're looking at there, Ray.
Well, best as I can figure, it's got a manual section here in the front, because there's a shifter control goes into this section, which is probably 5-speed, and here is an air controlled section on the rear of it, which would, I would say, because it's got 2 cylinders on it, it may provide as many as 4 gears.
Wow. So
it's a 5 and a 4 with a split.
So it's more powerful than we think it is.
Or capable of.
Yes, yes.
If you're pulling a road train, definitely all these reductions are a big advantage.
Ray, it looks like it's even got an air starter.
That's it. Oh, that is too, look. Right here.
Huh. There you go.
Start Master.
Awesome.
Just the same as a big grown-up Mack truck, this old humble gardener has got an air starter. They must have battled a few nights. It's got a decompression lever on the back of the cylinder head too.
Wow.
So in a dark night when things were looking really grim and the rain clouds were coming, you could decompress her, and that last little bit of chuff in the start tank might get her going for you.
Wow.
Well, I think the gardener's probably worth about 220 maybe horsepower. And
so she'd be struggling a bit.
Yeah, I've got a sleeper bed on it and a few ventilations, a couple of grab handles to climb in. Could do a whole lot worse in the period.
So the truck you drive at the moment, it's at the base where you sit is up about here somewhere.
The floor is, yeah. It's the same height as the top of my head. That's the floor.
That's the floor, and then you got the rest of it. So back in this time, they haven't arrived at big high cabs yet, have they? No.
Well, we've got flat floors and walk-arounds and all sorts of things that these guys don't have. I can get dressed standing up in my truck, and this guy at best would be standing beside it.
Yeah, you'd have to get out. Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go, folks. The old Foden. Ray, I have to say, this says Austin, and you can sort of see the Austin grill there, which looks maybe like a Lodestar, 1950 Lodestar.
Sure does.
You shred it out a wee bit. But a very odd shape, and a lady actually wrote to me and she said she thinks that one of these was a sort of like a grocery truck in New Plymouth. She seems to remember the odd shape of this thing, but looking at it, I'd have to say Renault, Peugeot.
Yes.
One of those.
It does have a European style and a flavour about it.
Yes, it does.
Quite advanced for an Austin of the period.
Yes. And this sort of little, like the lady said, it would have been just a little round town sort of a truck, deliveries and things like that.
Fit in small holes and rather economical and low to put things in and out of.
But Austin or BMC for that matter had this truck that was made for alleys, and the doors went sort of 45 degrees behind the cab. Mm-hmm. That means you could go down an alley, but you could open your door and you could get out into the alley, and alley trucks ain't they called them. But anyway, I just thought this was just an odd looking Austin, so we thought we can't let it go without having a word or two about it.
Sure. This one was a birthday gift.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
To who?
Daphne, Ron's wife.
Oh, okay.
I can bet she would be thrilled to be giving a restored Austin for a birthday.
You run out of lawnmowers, did he?
And anyway, the vacuum cleaners was new.
Yeah, she's very, very cute machine and odd.
Yes.